More information is starting to come out as we get closer and closer to the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. So I want to start off with a rumor that's actually happened before, but it's happened again now, and that is Red Dead Redemption 2 coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 later this year. Now, this is not a new rumor. We got a rumor of Red Dead Redemption 2, Final Fantasy, Split Fiction, and a large group of games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as ports or as new versions. And we've gotten some of those games being announced, Final Fantasy, for example, Split Fiction, but there are still some games yet to be announced. But now this is the second time that we've heard about Red Dead Redemption 2 coming over to the Nintendo Switch 2. So this is from Game Reactor. They have their own internal sources that say that Red Dead Redemption 2 will be coming out on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's not necessarily a one-off thing, but it's going to be something that's coming later down the line. They also talked about a next-gen upgrade patch for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One versions of the game to upgrade those to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. And this is all once again coming from an internal source. They also touched on GTA 4 and how that's been pushed out maybe to a little bit later, but GTA 4 seems to be a thing as well, potentially Max Payne. So it seems like Rockstar is finally realizing that people want some of their older games. And I wouldn't even say finally realizing, they realize that. They've put out older titles, remastered or re-released. We had stuff like LA Noire. We had the GTA trilogy that launched in a pretty bad state, but got patches to fix it up on all the different platforms. And we got Red Dead Redemption 1 released on Nintendo Switch 1 in addition to PlayStation 4. And they even got an update for that to 60 frames per second on PlayStation 4. So I do feel that yes, like they are bringing back their classic games, they are bringing back some stuff, but they're being pretty smart and tactical about it. They're not just overloading the market so they all kind of overlap each other, but they're actually strategically putting out these games at some point, these classic titles. And I think that they're trying to make sure that they don't have the same situation that happened with GTA Trilogy when it comes to some of these older classic games, because it's not just like you can press a button and the game just ports itself over. You've got to get some actual work done to make sure that everything lines up and works, considering it's different hardware, even if it's stronger hardware overall. So I think that Red Dead Redemption 2 is definitely coming over. And if you look at what happened with Red Dead Redemption 1, that sold really good on the Nintendo Switch 1 in addition to the PlayStation 4. They made millions of dollars off of that. And even still to this point, Red Dead Redemption 1 is a top 30 bestseller and frequently makes it back in and out of the best-selling games on the Nintendo Switch 1. So people are still buying that Red Dead Redemption port from the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Much higher quality than the original versions though. So I do feel that they think that it'd probably be a good idea to get Red Dead Redemption 2 out on the Nintendo Switch 2 in addition to Xbox and PlayStation with modern systems. Now this definitely lends well to what Mr. Strauss Zelnick had to say about him being a big believer in the Nintendo Switch 2, which once again, not going to sit here and say that this game with Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to lead to GTA 6, but I definitely think it has to be under consideration, considering the position that Microsoft is in with barely over 30 million units or so. And even with PlayStation 5 doing so well, that's definitely good, but you'd like to have an even bigger install base to sell the game to, since it's not going to be out on PC at launch. So I do feel that PC and the Nintendo Switch 2 could be something that happens for GTA 6 afterwards. And I think that the big amount of support that we've seen from Take-Two so far could, I would say, put some hope out there. Not saying it's going to happen 100%, but with these rumors with Red Dead Redemption 2 and other things, it's definitely a possibility overall. But it's also a possibility that all of the people that are not subscribed to the channel go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they launch. Now let's get into the next topic here, because we're going to discuss, unfortunately, a mistake that Nintendo made with a feature for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is VRR. Nintendo has clarified that the Nintendo Switch 2 does support VRR, but it's only in handheld mode. It's not going to be when docked up to the TV. So essentially what VRR does, that's called variable refresh rate. It helps kind of smooth out some of the frame rates when you're playing games, and certain games do support VR very nice. It's really well implemented on the Xbox Series, for example, but you have to have a TV that actually supports it, and of course the games. There's a lot that actually goes into it, but at the end of the day, having VRR for handheld mode is a good thing, but it's not great that it's not supported on the TV. Now, another thing to note though is that the PlayStation 5 also did not support VRR at launch, and it ultimately ended up getting a patch to support VRR. But once again, I'm not exactly sure how well it works on PlayStation 5. I have a VRR OLED TV, the LG CX. I'm not exactly sure how well it works, and I don't really play my Xbox too much, so I don't know all of the extents of it. Some people talk about VRR flicker and other types of things, but at the end of the day, we do know that it would help out with some games. So Nintendo Switch 2 supports VRR in handheld mode only. The incorrect information was initially published on the Nintendo Switch 2 website. We apologize for the error. That was the message that Nintendo put out because they removed the whole VRR thing out of nowhere, I think like a couple of weeks ago, but they did clarify it. So it's very unfortunate that it doesn't support it on the TV, but I think for most people, they probably don't even know what VRR is, or they might not even have a TV that supports the VRR functionality. But once again, it's unfortunate that there was a mix-up or mistake with that. But I do think that maybe in the future, there will be an update. And I think that's what caused maybe the problem in the first place. Nintendo's usually pretty thorough with the features and certain stuff. Not saying that there isn't human error or mistakes that happen. Nintendo did add to that. That's when asked about, hey, look, can we see this in the future? They said, hey, we have nothing to announce about that right now. So once again, it could come in the future. So what do you guys think about no support for VRR on the Nintendo Switch 2 for TV mode? Handheld mode, it's still supported, but TV mode, it's not. You can let me know in the comment section. But now we're going to move on to some high-res images of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, the news of the free Nintendo Switch 2 updated games, so these are Switch 1 games running on your Nintendo Switch 2. We know about them. I actually detailed them in a video, so if you want to hear about all the different upgrades coming to Nintendo Switch 1 games for the free updates running on Nintendo Switch 2, check out my video. There will be a link in the description below. But I wanted to kind of focus in on one of the games, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Out of all the games on this list, this is what needs it the most. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet does not run good on the base Nintendo Switch 1. There is a lot of issues, and they put out, apparently Nintendo of Korea put out 2 images of the game and its updated form. Now, they were uploaded in 4K, and some people were saying, well, wait a minute, it's actually going to be in 4K. But then there was other people that I saw commenting saying, well, no, it's 1080p and upsampled or DLSS or something else. So we don't really know at this point, but they were uploaded in 4K images. So we'll see what happens if it actually ends up being 4K or DLSS or 1080p or upscaled or whatever the case is. But I think that the biggest thing here with this is that it shows that the game is actually going to be able to render way more Pokemon on the screen at once. There were other people that had comparison screenshots of the same areas or the same 2 areas, and one of them I saw like with the water, and there was way less Pokemon on the screen at the same time. They could still just say, hey, look, we're going to lock it down to 30 frames per second, then also increase all the other stuff like the resolution and the rendering and the draw distance and some of the other things, but we still have to wait and see the extent of it. I think it's going to be an incredible video for Digital Foundry and people just playing the game to see exactly what was done with this. Now, one more thing that I want to point out is that the official Pokemon company on Twitter, their Twitter handle, they actually retweeted this when Nintendo put up, hey, here are the free updated games. They retweeted this, or more like quote tweeted it and saying, hey, look, here it is for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So it does look like it's going to be a pretty substantial upgrade, not like a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, like where they completely revamp some of the graphics or increase it to the degree and extra content and stuff like that. But it's still going to be pretty solid overall if they're retweeting that about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And to me, yes, there are issues with the game when it comes down to like some of maybe the story, or of course, like you can talk about the draw distance, you can talk obviously about the graphics overall, resolution, but the biggest issue to me was the frame rate, because if you are in the water, like this screenshot right here, it's running like at 10 to 15 frames per second at times. Like, it is terrible overall. It was so bad that I actually had to stop playing the game for a bit, and I just decided, hey, I'm going to get back to it, but I'm just going to leave this water area. And I left most of the stuff in the water areas. I just left it untouched outside of going and doing what I actually needed to do, but I did not explore in the water areas. I did not catch a bunch of different Pokemon. I didn't do anything there because it just ran so bad overall. So if they fix that, that really makes the game significantly better. Still has some of the other issues that you can objectively say about it that I think is fair overall, but it really fixes the big issue with the game, and that is the performance. So I'm hoping that it actually turns out to be pretty good when it comes down to it, and it's a free update as well. So if you already have the game, you don't have to pay for it. All you got to do is insert the game or load up the game and download the update on your Nintendo Switch 2, and you'll be playing a much better, from what it seems like here, improved version of a game that's actually pretty good. If you can get past some of the frame rate stuff and the graphics, man, I actually had a ton of fun with the story and everything with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So there's potential there, and I think people see that as well. The game continues to sell. It's actually the second best selling Pokemon game of all time, and it passed up Pokemon Sword and Shield recently. So that tells you something. People are still picking up the game and enjoying it despite the situation that it has. And it's been well documented out there, so it's not like people did not see it overall. What do you guys think when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and the update here? What else could they do? Are you guys going to be going back to play this game? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to another topic here, and that is Fast Fusion. And this is from Shin'en Multimedia, and they talked about the Nintendo Switch 2's power, actually calling it amazing, and detailed kind of how difficult it was to get game share to work. So here's what they had to say about the tech specs. This was in an interview with Nintendo Everything. This was Shin'en CEO Manfred Linzer. He spoke highly about the system, saying, quote, "It's amazing how much power you can get out of a device that also works as a handheld." And he stated that Fast Fusion will be, quote, "much more alive and beautiful compared to Fast RMX on the Nintendo Switch 1. We do know that this game does support 4K 60 frames per second. It's going to support gyro controls, and it supports game share. Game share allows for you to play a game, one game, with someone else, so you can share your game with that person, and it supports locally and online game share. So if you have a friend that doesn't have the game, hey, game share it with them and you guys can both play. And he actually talked about how this was really difficult to do overall. Here's what he had to say, quote, "Until recently, Fast Fusion was the only Nintendo Switch 2 game we had ever seen, so everything we've done was a first, which is always a bit difficult. Implementing game share can be done in a variety of ways. We decided to render the game 2 times for 2 screens. This means this is very demanding for the game engine and needed a lot of optimization, so this was actually difficult." And remember, Shin'en Multimedia, they're like 3 to 4 people. It's going to take a lot of hours and everything, and game share to me is one of the, I would say, unsung best things, one of the best features of the Nintendo Switch 2 that people aren't talking about, because it's great to be able to share it like you were playing locally with your brother or your sister or your friend back in the day, or if you still have friends that get together and play games. I think that this is really going to open things up and get more people excited about playing games with family and friends. I really do like the fact that game share works this type of way, and it also saves some people money, man. If you only play a game when it comes to just playing with the friend, then there's no point in you buying that. Let them get it, or somebody get it, right? Or you guys can split it, and then you can do game share overall whenever you guys feel like playing and link up that way. So to me, it actually works really well, and I feel that it's going to be a great thing for the Nintendo Switch 2 going forward. So what do you guys think about game share and everything that's happening there, in addition to what the CEO of Shin'en Multimedia had to say about the specs of the Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to the final topic, and that's the Nintendo Switch eShop charts for May 17, 2025. Now, the reason why this is somewhat significant, and I wanted to bring it up at least, it's that Nintendo has changed the format from the most units sold to the revenue-wise, and that's the cutback on all of the games that would reduce their titles to like $1 or whatever the case is, just to get up on the best sellers to kind of game the system so people can see it more. Now it's changed up. Now it's based off of the revenues. So the look of the top 30 is a bit different, and just like many people felt, it's a lot of the bigger games overall. If you look through this list, Super Mario Party Jamboree, obviously Minecraft, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Smash Bros., Animal Crossing, Hogwarts Legacy, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Nintendo Switch Sports. Like a lot of these games that kind of were at the bottom or mid or not on the list are now jumping back in. Even a game like Pokemon Legends Arceus all the way up to number 10 on the list here, which you never really see that. Or even The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That would be in the lower portions. Now that's all the way up to number 11, Breath of the Wild and various other games. But I also think that people are prepping and getting ready for the Nintendo Switch 2 update. So if you buy the game now or whatever the case is, you'll be ready to get that free update overall, or get that Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack update for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, which both of the games are on this list. Donkey Kong Country returns. You also got Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, GTA Trilogy. So it's a lot of the bigger games. Even the 100 line, Last Line Defense Academy, that's pretty cool to be on there as well. And like I talked about before, Red Dead Redemption, that's also back in the top 30 as well. So I think it kind of is a good thing. There's some bad things about that, right? Because like independent developers maybe don't get that type of play because their games are cheaper. But at the same time, it's going to put up the games that people are actually, for the most part, good games or solid games that people want to play. And I will say this, Fantasy Life, the girl who steals time. Good to see that in at number 9. So what do you guys think about the change when it comes to the Nintendo Switch eShop charts, which this is going to carry over to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well, and the games that are coming out for that system. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks. But what do you guys think about everything here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.